Hi, welcome to Steaming It Up Anywhere. I'm Kristen Brennison with NIU STEAM, and today we're talking with Malik Berry from Franklin STEAM Academy. Hello,
Hello, hello. How are you?
I'm doing well. How about you?
I am doing great. Just packed up my class. It's a little bit of a weird feeling, but I'm kind of looking forward to getting this whole year wrapped up and looking forward to next year.
It has been an interesting year to say the least, right?
Yeah, definitely has been interesting. Science classrooms, you always want to, go around and do experiments and, and interact with the students. It's different now being online and still having some interactions, but, I like to get in the classroom and do those experiments.
So tell us about what you teach at Franklin STEAM Academy.
So I teach seventh grade science. I also teach a section of AVID, which is our college readiness program. For science, we follow the NGHS and NGSS science standards. So for first quarter, we teach energy. Second quarter, we teach chemistry. Third quarter, we teach biology. And then fourth quarter, we teach weather and climate.
So one of the things that we've talked a little bit about is how you engage your students through authentic labs and this idea of authentic learning. So what's an example of one of the activities you do with your students?
Yeah, so one activity that I brought to Franklin, just thinking of the curriculum. We started off in the curriculum, give you a little background on it. We teach energy first quarter, and the first lab is, putting together some wires to make a motor work. That second lab is a saltwater battery, which is not bad. It's not bad. I love that lab, and the kids love that lab. Um, and even after those labs and whatnot, you have kids, especially in my class, they say, hey, I felt like a scientist today. And, those are the best feelings. So the one lab that I brought in, one of the labs I brought in that super worked, that was 100% engagement was the snap circuit lab. The snap circuit lab are, you get like these snap circuit kits, and in these kits come at least 15 to 60 to 100 pieces in it, and you can make over 300 projects. Even on the outside of it, they even have some projects that kids can make, like FM radio announcers, street lamps. Even when kids were making these in class, all you hear is pew 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 pew, and like, what did you say? Like, I heard different things going on, and they even had a lie detector test in here. They actually tested it on me.
Truly
Uh,
authentic, actually seeing if it works and having a purpose.
yeah, and the greatest thing about it was that we had one snap circuit, right? One snap circuit box per table. So you had like seven tables, four kids each. They all got to participate. And I basically gave them the kid and said, go and start making them. These are things that I grew up with these. I used to, build with these for hours on end, being 5, 6, 7 years old. It's how I got into science to begin with. And so to see these kids now engaged, they're going through the pamphlets. They're like, oh, let's try this one, let's try that one. And, they were absolutely, engaged, and they were like, can you tell our parents about this? Can you tell my mom about this? And I'm like, I am not about to get in trouble for this, all right? I'm not about to get in trouble. Um, but the big thing about that was I didn't really try to, um, you know, force a lot of questions down. You know, I didn't try to like, I just let them explore. I let them explore for themselves. I didn't try to, do too much, as the kids were saying. I just try to just, give it to them, let them explore. And
So I'm sure that they probably came up with a lot of their own questions. Did you see a lot of questions happening and that kind of conversation?
Yes, a lot of questions were happening of, oh wait, why doesn't this work? Mr. Barry, come over here, come over here, come look at ours. Why doesn't this work? And I'm like, I don't know. Maybe you all have to go and figure this out together. I put it back on them to figure out, their own problems, and so they grow that way as well, and by the end of those snap circuit labs, they were like, Mr. Barry, can we just get these out for fun? Make some snap circuits. Let's go make another one. Because there's over 300 projects in here. And, the couple of questions I did tell them to go and do, I asked a question or I gave them instruction of, why don't you do like the first 100, do the lower level first, work your way up to the 200 and 300, okay? Don't get yourself overwhelmed. But the kids did absolutely excellent. It was 100% engagement. Next year, we're going to do it bigger and better. So I cannot wait.
So what are some other authentic learning labs that you do? Because I know science, I remember my own science class, my physics class in high school, and I actually remember in middle school making the saltwater battery. Mm-hmm. But a lot of them were you're given a kit, you do step A, B, C, and you end up with D. And yeah. I know you do some labs that are much more open-ended. Mm-hmm.
So one of the projects that I do, and I thank my mentor during student teaching for this. She definitely helped me out with being a science teacher, and she gave me this project kind of as like one of those stepping stones to now the snap circuit lab and the merge cube lab. I might have to talk about that later.
Oh, love a good merge cube lab.
Mm-hmm. We might get to that. So
that's a whole nother episode.
So one of the labs that we did is a hot or cold pack project. And so the hot or cold pack project was that kids had to design and build a hot or cold pack. And a hot or cold pack was used like chemicals and stuff. So they had to separate the chemicals until they wanted to put them together. So a kid cannot just, pour two chemicals together and expect to get an exceeds or a meets off of it. No, they had to make some device, make a mechanism of some sort that will release those chemicals into the water or into to get it to the mix. And in each every day too, I did, to get them immersed in this engineering, because we're a STEAM academy. So we have science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics. And for me, I try to hit on all of those as much as I can. That's why I kind of try to do with the Snap Circuit Lab. That was more of technology based and science based. This one was more art based, engineering based. Kids were up and about. They got to design their own project and whatnot. And what was cool about it was, kids did have a lot of problems, but I kind of got them conditioned for it. I would have labs where I would grade them solely on if they're a scientist or not. One of the engineering practices, scientific engineering practices, is that they can plan and carry out an investigation. So I am looking to see if you could plan and carry out an investigation. They sit down, they read the directions, and then we start. And so that kind of got them conditioned. We did it a couple of times. With standards-based grading, it was great because as we did more of those type of labs, you got to see the growth. So a kid might start off at the beginning for planning and carry out investigation. By the time they got on this project, they were at a meets. They could do this. And so it was super cool to see that come unfold. And to really, for the kids to put everything together that they've learned. They were like, okay, well, it's an endothermic, exothermic reaction. We have to find the mass, we got to find the temperature, we got to, what's the state of matter right now? And then also seeing their write-up afterwards, did a chemical reaction occur? How do I know? Are there any modifications that I can make? And so I had them go throughout the whole entire engineering process and learn it. And really, and even apply it apply those engineering ideas to different scenarios. And that will happen in the warm-ups throughout the project as well. So I'm kind of getting them to be in the mind of an engineer. I call them engineers. I call them scientists because I mean, that's how I feel I have to go and teach. Um, and for these kids, for these students in particular, they really like a challenge. You know, when I told them, hey, I'm not going to be helping you out, I saw a lot of kids look at each other and they were like, okay, nothing new here. I had one kid say, quote unquote, bet. And I was like, okay, then let's just see what kind of scientists we have here. Let's just see what kind of scientists.
Well, and you
Uh,
said this is something you do later in the year, so they become accustomed to the role you play, what their expectations are, that you're not going to spoon feed them the information, but they've got to figure it out and go through the
yeah,
struggles. So, yeah, I think that's something that a lot of teachers kind of sometimes forget is it doesn't just happen. You've got to condition students and get them used to this kind of learning to be successful in it.
yes. And another thing about science that is one of the great things I love about science is that you can relate it to the outside world. And that's what I try to do every single day. Every single day when they come into class, you know, that information that they learned about kinetic energy, gravitational energy, I got basketball players in the room talking about, oh, when I shot the ball, it had gravitational and kinetic energy. I was, what?
You're like,
What?
yes.
Like, that is exactly what I want. And that's exactly what I'm continuing right now. I have science CERs that I have the kids do. CER, claim evidence reasoning. I have them talk about what sorts of science they have going on in their lives. So a kid was like, hey, I cooked an egg and it was an endothermic reaction. Okay, then I'm going to take that. But back to this project, because I was able to connect those students from looking at their world to science, I got a lot of different and unique projects out of it. Here, let me just show you a couple real quick. Um, so one of my basketball players, he made a little bit of a mechanism like this. And so there's a little bit of a box. There's a box with some thread. And so you tie the rope around it. And so when you are ready to release ready to release the chemicals, you'll undo it. And then it lets all the chemicals fall down. You know, that was just one. I have a ton of them, a lot of them that look very different. You know, I got some that were made in boxes. I got some that were made in Gatorade bottles. I got some that were very patriotic, and I got some that really wanted to get to the point. That really
Mm-hmm.
wanted to get to the point. And I really allowed them at the end to be as expressive as they wanted to be, because if I look out on the counter and I see, 100 different projects, and a kid sees that too, they're gonna be like, which one's mine? I really want them to take ownership. I've had, this one, it's huge. It still got an exceeds because it did what it was supposed to do. It separated the chemicals until they wanted to combine them. Using this person that wanted to very much use sort of like kind of like a turn little thing. So you turn it,
Oh,
and then
yeah.
the chemicals sort of just fall underneath. They even designed it themselves, and it was just quite. It was by far one of the most brilliant things. I even had some of my sped kids, some of my lower kids that you wouldn't ever think would be on top of it in the class. Oh, they were my leaders, my leaders. Okay, I kid you not. I had kids that had IEPs telling kids that didn't have IEPs, oh, we should do it like this, we should do it like this, and let's do it like this. And they ended up getting exceeds as well. I even have one that's made out of a Pringles can. Pringles can. And I allow these kids, I tell them, bring in anything you want. Bring in anything you want. It really doesn't, it doesn't matter as long as you are able to solve the problem at hand. And these kids are very, very good at problem solving.
It sounds like that, when we think about fostering enthusiasm for learning and engagement, that this just sucks them in and they are all in and excited and thinking about this differently, which is a lot of fun. So how do you assess something like this? Because I know that's one of the biggest challenges when you've got these open-ended problem or projects, and sometimes their solution they design might not really work. So how do you assess this?
So, like with every good assessment, you gotta have a great rubric. Okay, you gotta have a rubric that is very much self-explanatory, and even the students should be able to read it and be able to understand it for themselves. So I think a good reason why that kids do so successful on this is because I also give them prompts that say, oh, Johnny did this and he didn't make his hot or cold pack. Oh, he combined the chemicals instead of letting the hot or cold pack combine the chemicals. What grade should Johnny get? And I have the kids look at their rubric and be in the teacher mind frame themselves of, okay, this is exactly what I would give Johnny. And some of these kids are ruthless when it comes to grading. I'm like, I'm not. I hope I'm not this ruthless when I come to your grading.
But I love that because it gets them, one, it's modeling kind of the thinking, and it gets them, part of the engineering design cycle is that evaluating phase, is evaluating whether or not it works. So you're giving them some low stakes way to think about their own solution,
Mm-hmm.
and what works, what doesn't, and how would they make a good determination on if their product met their criteria or not. I love that idea of giving them sample scenarios to evaluate.
Yep. And another thing with it is that I let the students make their own mistakes. Even with those labs that I grade them based on solely if they're scientists, I let them make their own mistakes. One of the labs that we did leading up to the project, one of the students or like a group of students, instead of putting the chemicals into a graduated and into a beaker, they put it into a graduated cylinder. And all of those chemicals went all over the desk. Now, mind you, I laughed. I laughed a little bit because I was like, it's class. Right now it's low stakes. These are just chemicals. I can go get a little bit more from the shed, but not from the shed, but from the chemical thing, from the chemical box. But it's very much I give them enough to be that ownership of their education. And when it comes to the test itself, like I look at, okay, did they engineer an item? Did it not just design an item or make it look pretty or like coloring over it? Did they actually engineer something? And then I look at, okay, what did they plan to do? Because that's one thing that I try to assess them on is, okay, well, you made a product that you plan to absorb thermal energy, but it released thermal energy instead. Well, I can't necessarily give you any seats for that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and that very much goes to the rubric itself. The rubric itself says, there's 3 boxes in the meets column, and if you get all 3 boxes, good, you have a meets. If you get one more box, so say that you go above and beyond on your CER, okay, well then now you can get an exceeds in that particular category. And I'm actually grading them on 3 different science concepts, 3 different standards. So I have a lot to choose from, and that's why I wish I would have known in college is to use those standards to benefit me. That is the guide for the class. I will tell the students, hey, this is exactly what I'm grading you on. I'm going to be grading you on engagement, or I'm going to be grading you on completing the work. Now, if I know the lab's going to be exciting, I'm going to intentionally say, oh, yep, I'm going to grade you on if your work is completed or not, because I know the work might not get completed if they are too much, too engaged, right?
They'll head down a rabbit hole that you might never be able to bring them back.
Yes.
Well, and I like this because you can very clearly see the scientific concepts that you're targeting.
Hmm.
So I know that probably aligns very closely with that standard.
Yep.
Yet there's so much room for student expression, for student
Hmm.
experimentation. So it kind of encompasses that whole idea of problem-based learning and project-based learning, that there's no right answer. It's kind of messy to get there. There's a driving question, and it helps to engage students.
Yeah. And yeah, with this project, again, it was 100% engagement. It was a lot of collaboration. I had kids, that some kids wanted to work by themselves. Cool, let them work by themselves. Some kids are like that. Some kids want to be with a group. All right, I'll let them be with a partner. Now, if I know, some kids don't show up as much to class, or maybe need a little bit more help. Okay, that's fine. You guys could be in a group of three. What's one more gonna hurt, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I very much allow these students to be expressive of themselves, to collaborate with one another. Um, because that's how life is. You're gonna have to collaborate with people in order to get a common objective done.
So, yeah, I think a lot of voice and choice.
Hmm.
So final thoughts. What advice would you give to a science teacher who wants to take on a project like this and pull it into their kind of more traditional science class?
The first word of advice that I would give is to be fearless, to go out with the growth mindset that we try to instill to these kids, to go out and be all right with failing, because if you fail, it is not the end of the world. You just have to come back, be better, and and very much try to play to the students' strengths. And with this project, I very much try to do that with all the things that I give, including focus notes. On this focus notes, there are there's an art part of it. You know, that's what I'm trying to say is you have to play to these kids' strengths. The visualization. I have a lot of kids that definitely love to draw, and they never really think that drawing is part of science. Well, sometimes you're gonna have to connect the dots for them. Don't give them all the answers. Don't give them all.
Yeah. Well, this has been great. I love this project and love all the ideas and love your enthusiasm. It's always so fun to talk to you.
Oh yeah. Oh
Well,
yeah.
thank you so much. And yeah, have a great end of the year and take care.
Hey, no, thank you so much for having me, and take care as well.